Happy Boxing Day and welcome to Sunday Politics. I'm Kayode Okikiolu here in Lagos. I do hope the day has been nothing but beautiful for you. But whatever the case, you need to make room for the all-important package we have for you tonight. We're taking on the important political conversations, but in a relaxed atmosphere. So please get comfortable as we unwrap our package for you today. After all, it's Boxing Day. We'll begin with the death of one of the most prominent figures in Africa. He's known for fighting against apartheid in South Africa, and that's Emeritus Archbishop Desmond Tutu. The revered Nobel Peace Prize winner died today in Cape Town at the age of 90 after a battle with prostate cancer, and his death has sparked an outpouring of tributes. Well, Archbishop Tutu was for decades a friend of late former South African President Nelson Mandela, and together they saw an end to the white minority rule in that country. Well, tributes have been pouring in, as I said, and here in Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari has condoled with President Cyril Ramaphosa, South Africans, and the global Christian body, particularly the Anglican Communion, over the death of Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu. Well, President Buhari believes his death creates a void in the world, and part of the president's statement reads, "The death of the iconic teacher, human rights activist, leader of thought, scholar, and philanthropist further creates a void in a world in dire need of wisdom, integrity, courage, and sound reasoning, which were qualities that the Nobel Peace Prize winner typified and exemplified in words and actions." Now, the president commiserates with his widow, Leah Tutu, his family and foundation, while praying for the repose of his soul. Now let's bring you some of the highlights of his very impactful life. He was born on October the 7th, 1931 in Klerksdorp, northwest South Africa. And between 1956 and 1984, he joined the clergy and became one of the most prominent opponents of racial segregation and white minority rule, apartheid, in South Africa. And in 1984, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his non-violent campaign to win racial equality for his people. Well, in 1986, he became the first black head of the Anglican Church in South Africa. And fast forward to the 90s, where together with Nelson Mandela, he co-headed negotiations to end apartheid. Incidentally, in 1995, then President Nelson Mandela sent Archbishop Tutu to Nigeria to meet with then military head of state, General Sani Abacha, to request the release of MKO Abiola and Olusegun Obasanjo. In 1996, he chaired the famous Truth and Reconciliation Commission to investigate past human rights abuses in that country. And in 2010, he retired from most public duties. Well, may his soul rest in peace. Back here in Nigeria, there was panic this morning in Eziama Obaire community in Ikwere local government area of Imo State. That's when security operatives arrested Mr. Uchenwosu, the former governorship candidate in Imo State and son-in-law to former governor of the state, Senator Rochas Okorocha. Now, the arrest, which was said to have been enforced amidst the out-in service of his late mother, who was buried a few days ago. We saw videos surfaced online earlier on, showing armed men putting Mr. Nwosu in the back of a vehicle and whisking him away while shots were heard fired sporadically. Well, the Imo State Police Command has now confirmed his arrest, saying he's in police custody. And the state public relations officer, Michael Abatam, refuted claims that he was kidnapped by unknown persons. But that was just the start of the accusations and denials. Well, we had former governor of Imo State, Senator Rochas Okorocha, speak on what he believes is at play here. Do take a listen.
This is one arrest too many has led to me and members of my family. There was just no justifiable reason for the police to have gone into the church to carry on such shooting exercise. Even the security attached to my family could not, because they identified the policeman. Why go to the church? Why is the shooting? Why do you have to drag the innocent boy on the floor? Why do you have to beat him up? Why do you have to push my wife? Why do you have to push my daughter? Why have to tear their clothes? There was no single arrest warrant on Uchenwosu. Nothing at all. It was like a kidnap. If not for the fact that we have confirmed that it is police, the initial fear that this was unknown gunmen that has come to kill Uchenwosu.
What is the haste in this press conference, trying to politicize an ordinary thing? Uchenwosu is just an indigene of Imo State and a citizen of Nigeria. And if he has run foul of the law, the police has every right to arrest him. And how they do it should not be, nobody should dictate to them how they do it. It depends on the gravity of the offense, and it depends on the information at their disposal. But what is painful is that a former governor of this state, Rocha Sokorocha, is busy railing abuses on His Excellency, the governor of Imo State, and saying all manner of things about him. I don't want to join issues with him.
So you've heard from the former governor and Senator Rocha Sokorocha, and then the government speaking there through the commissioner. So, well, we don't know what exactly is at play here. The police has released a statement, but clearly more needs to be said about this one. It's clearly a developing story, and we'll stay on it for you. But let's unravel tonight's program some more, shall we? Our President Muhammadu Buhari, through his media aide, penned a Christmas message to Nigerians, where in addition to promising to keep working to improve the living standards of Nigerians, he also addressed the security situation in the country. And here's part of what the president said. He says, "Our courageous security forces, bolstered by the necessary support from this administration, daily confront the wicked ones amongst us who continue to threaten the peace of the land." Recently, during a meeting with fellow heads of state of the ECOWAS, I discussed the need to intensify efforts to jointly confront this menace causing instability in our sub-region. The president goes on to say he is confident that with the renewed commitment and empowerment of security personnel, our committed security personnel, all these issues which inflict pain and trauma on us will soon be history. Now, for the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, Nigeria is entering into a season of peace and prosperity. Now, he was speaking after the Christmas service at the Villa Chapel of State House in Abuja. Take a listen. I'll be back for more.
On this very special occasion, I think we should all just receive the blessings of God. Every Nigerian should receive the great blessings that God has. And I believe very strongly that we're entering into a season of God's great blessings, of peace, of prosperity, and all will be well with our country. In Jesus' name.
But that's not all. The opposition People's Democratic Party also penned a Christmas message to Nigerians. Now, the party, which says it is looking forward to when the president's administration comes to an end in 2023, is not happy with the prevailing situation in the country. Now, part of the statement by the spokesperson of the party, Honorable Debo Ologunagba, reads, "The PDP is saddened that while people celebrate in other parts of the world, many Nigerian families could not afford the basic items of celebration or even travel as they do in the past to meet and bond with their loved ones due to high costs, once in insecurity, deplorable state of roads, which are now death traps in our country under the APC administration." So that's a direct statement made towards this administration. We've listened to the president's comments regarding security. The vice president has also spoken, saying that we're entering as a country into a period of peace, prosperity, that it is well with Nigeria. But let's try to weigh these sides. The PDP saying, well, clearly a lot of people are not having it easy. The president, the vice president is saying things will get better. Well, let's get more on this. We're joined on the program by Mr. Femi Adesina, who is a senior special advisor to the president on media and publicity. He joins us via Zoom this evening. Well, Mr. Adesina, good evening and thank you for joining us on the program. And may I say, happy Boxing Day to you.
Thank you. Compliments of the season.
I wish you the same. Well, it must have been quite a scare, and that's where I want to begin from. When you heard that Mr. Garba Shehu had tested positive for COVID-19, although he says it is mild, well, Nigerians also got to hear confirmation via a message he put out. He's your colleague. your friend, I should say, and you work closely together. How are you holding up on your own side?
Well, what I like to say is that presidential aides human, are human. They can fall sick, they can recover, they can contact virus, and the virus can also disappear.
Just a moment, if I may butt in here. We're having a lot of interference with your audio. So if you could just help us turn down any output source, any speaker around you that might be giving out audio because it's interfering with our conversation. So if that is done, you can please pick up from where you left off.
Just a second.
Okay.
Okay.
If that's sorted,
Okay,
okay,
please
go
continue.
ahead.
Okay. Yeah, it's been done now. Yes, what I was trying to say is that presidential aides are just human. If anything happens to human beings, it can also happen to presidential aides. The fact that we have presidential aides does not make us to be immune from certain things. If there is a virus that is ravaging society, well, it can touch anybody. So Malam Garba Shehu has confirmed that, yes, he tested positive, but he said it's mild. And I believe that by now, because it happened since Wednesday, by now, he should almost have beaten it, if he has not beaten it already. There is no cause for alarm.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the good news we look forward to. But for you, having been in contact with him as well, I'm just wondering, how are you holding up?
Well, I also believe God for the best. If it happens, I'll recover. So that's just it.
Just to be clear, it's been reported that the virus is ravaging the State House. In fact, you referenced the virus ravaging the world. So for the president's aides and the State House, how many people have been affected?
No, that will not be within my purview to discuss. Maybe if you get the presidential doctor or anybody in the medical side, they will tell you. I wouldn't know because it's a private thing. If it happens to anybody, it's between that person and possibly the doctor. It's not going to be a general knowledge. So I may not be able to say.
Right. It's just important to respond to some of these issues because they're out there. People can just go to town with it. And just to clear this one as well, is the president isolating, saying that, I mean, those close to him have been affected?
No, I think Mr. President is quite fine. He's doing his normal routine, following his normal schedule. But if anybody close to him tests positive, that person is required to stay away till he tests again and he tests negative. So Mr. President just follows his normal schedule and routine.
Well, we wish you the very best, really, at this time. But let's get into the security conversation. The president just recently held a Security Council meeting. In fact, it was called an emergency meeting. And, I mean, that's not something we hear every time. So what warranted the emergency nature of that meeting first?
Well, you notice that it happened on a Friday. Security meetings rarely happen on Fridays. In fact, almost all security meetings till now happen on Thursdays. But Wednesday, there was a special Federal Executive Council meeting. And then on Thursday, there was another Federal Executive Council meeting because there were a number of memos that needed to be treated before the year ended. On Thursday, there were about 34 memos that were treated. And that took the position of the Security Council meeting. Two things actually crowded out the Security Council meeting. One, that special Federal Executive Council meeting. Two, the president had to visit Maiduguri in Borno State to commission some projects. Therefore, when the Security Council meeting was scheduled for Friday, it was called an emergency because that is not the normal time. That is not the usual time that it holds.
So, I mean, it appeared as though I mean, saying that the president visited Borno State on Thursday, as you referenced, and on that day, just before the president arrived, we had the series of rocket launcher explosions, which killed people, by the way. So it looked as though that was related. So we had that attack and the president's visit on Thursday. There was an emergency Security Council meeting on Friday. But about the president's visit, how do people situate that attack in the context of the ongoing war against insurgency? Because it seemed quite close, and those areas that were attacked were just about 5-6 kilometer radius from the Air Force strip.
It was some sort of scaremongering. They wanted to frighten the president away. But they've forgotten that this president is a retired general. They've forgotten that he's a man who can stand his own. They thought they would succeed in getting the president to cancel that visit. That was why they possibly did what they did. But we see that the president still went ahead with the visit, and from all indications, it was a very successful visit. It's sad that some people lost their lives in that attack, but it shows you the cowardly nature of those behind those attacks.
So in the face of, I mean, the statements that have been put out about this fight against insurgency, saying that, I mean, we had the technically defeated at some point and, we're getting to the beginning of the end. I mean, those are the kinds of statements that we've heard from the government. How should we situate this? Is this, I mean, we had a previous attack, by the way, in Borno State, which, hit different locations, 1,000 housing estate and the rest. In fact, they said that it hit a particular location that is close to an area for de-radicalization. So clearly we have this, these obvious fears amongst people. So what will the president be saying to those people?
Well, let me start from the first aspect of what you said, that we've had expressions like technically defeated and we're in the last stages and all that. Yes, everything that has been said is true. Because if you consider the nature of this insurgency, from 2009, when it started, till now, it has mutated in very many ways. And the current shape and state of it cannot be compared to what it was in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. No, a lot has been done to weaken. The technical word is degrade. A lot has been done to degrade those aggressors. And you can't compare what happens today to what used to happen. It's just a matter of ending this thing. That was why the president said in Maiduguri that we're in the final stages of the war against insurgency. And I believe it. We are in the final stages. And that was what he also told the security chiefs at the Security Council meeting. End this thing. End it. It's time to end it. And I believe that with all Nigerians working together, cooperating and collaborating with the security forces, we will end it quite soon.
Just to be clear on that one, I mean, the president, in fact, talked about his geopolitical zone as well, the Northwest, where he says it's the same people killing and stealing from each other. And then at that meeting, he actually spoke about, some strategic targets given to security heads in defeating all adversaries. So what does the end of this terrorism, insecurity look like? What is that goal that we're trying to achieve? So at least when we see it, we know that, yes, we have hit that goal.
Well, the goal is when wanton killing stops. Wanton killing stops. We don't hear of bombings. Today, you don't hear of bombings as you used to hear of it in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That has reduced drastically. But what the president wants is for it to end completely. Completely. Once in a while, you still hear of bombs here and there. And then you have heard of 2 cases of rockets being fired into the city. This is to stop completely. When this stops, then we know we are there. That is what Mr. President desires, a conclusive end, a conclusive stops, possibly a taking out of all the brains behind these evil actions.
Can that be achieved before the president leaves office in 2023?
Nothing is impossible. I always refer to the Tamil tigers in Sri Lanka. That rebellion lasted for 28 years. But one day, the mastermind of that rebellion was taken out. And that was the automatic end of it. Those who are behind this insurgency will be taken out. They have been taken out one after the other. It will come to a point that the last of them will be taken out, and then we'll get to the end of it. It can be done within the 17 months that remains for this administration.
So Nigerians can indeed hold on to your word, by extension, the president's, that this ends before he leaves office.
I believe so. We're quite hopeful it can happen.
Now, to be fair, Mr. Additional, I mean, security is at various levels, as it were, and I just want to get your opinion that on this one. How much of this security lies within the responsibility of the president, and how much is the responsibility of subnationals and state governors? There's always a lot of attention, and rightly so, on the president, the federal government, but just how much can you do? How much do you have to leave to the subnationals? I'm talking about the president.
Yes. Well, when you have something like the insurgency that ravaged the Northeast, you cannot quite leave it to the subnationals. Anything that will require military intervention, you can't leave to the subnationals because the governors don't control the military, they don't have authority over the military. That will naturally be at the doorstep of the federal government because the president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, is the one that can deploy them, is the one that can give commandments to them as the commander-in-chief. So there are some other security challenges that will be within the purview of the subnationals. But anyone that requires military intervention will be right at the doorstep of the federal government.
Okay, we have other issues to raise aside security. In fact, they are related to security, but not majorly security. But on this point you just raised, I mean, about the military and all, I recall earlier in the year when the president was granted an interview, and he said that he actually spoke to some state governors to go back to their state and sort the security challenge. I mean, they campaigned anyway to become governor. So in what context was the president speaking? What kind of powers did he want them to use to solve insecurity in that context?
Yes, those are issues that don't require the military, for instance. There are many things in states that the governors, in collaboration with the commissioners of police, are to sort out. They don't have to run to the presidency at the drop of a hat. For instance, the president spoke in context of some herdsmen being found in some forests in certain parts of the West. When the governors of two states particularly came to see him about that matter, he said he told them, go back to your state and solve this. It's within your purview to do. It's not a federal government matter. It's not that at the slightest drop of the hat you run to the president. That is why you are the chief security officer of your state. That is why you are the governor. So there are certain things that governors and commissioners of police need to tackle. They don't have to take them to the federal government. Federal government has enough on its plate already, particularly with insurgency and banditry. Those are things that the federal government has to attend to.
But honestly, really, what kind of security do governors chief, as it were? Is it the police? Clearly not. I mean, as you said, it's not the military. So what security do they chief when you call governors chief security officers?
They still have a right to ensure that their domains are safe. That was why they ran, they contested for election, and they were elected. When you are elected, you have to fulfill the duties for which you were elected. One of it is to ensure that lives and property are secure within your domain. They are the chief security officers, and they work in collaboration with the commissioners of police in their states. It's the duty of governors to do that.
You know, there's so much to raise on this one, Mr. Additional. But quickly, before we move away from security, just to be clear, after Justice Taiwo gave the order designating acts of certain bandit groups as terrorism, is it now safe to refer to them as terrorists, and by extension, the military engage them in the same manner?
Well, the last I heard of that was that there was still some processes which will be done by the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation. And I guess that once those processes are concluded, they can safely then be declared as terrorists and treated so. I guess there are still some procedural actions to take before they can then be treated as terrorists.
But it's been a month since that order. Does it usually take this long? How much longer?
Well, the Attorney General, Office of the Attorney General of the Federation can answer that question.
All right, so let's move now to something that has been in the news, big one, the Electoral Act Amendment. Just recently, we had the Senate President and the Speaker of the House of Representatives visit the President. And I'm just wondering, have they now resolved that Electoral Act stalemate? The President declined assent, and he returned it, and now they've visited. There are plans to actually override the President's veto. So has that been resolved at the level of the executive and legislature?
No, we wouldn't know. What was in the public domain was that it will be handled after the recess, and that will be in January. So we've just got to wait until the two houses reconvene and they take up the matter again. The House of Representatives publicly said they will revisit it in January, and later the Senate said, we will wait for the House of Representatives to also take up the matter, and then we'll also follow up at our own end. So we just got to wait till that time. There will be very little the principal officers, particularly the Speaker and the Senate President, can do behind their members. It will have to be a collective position when they reconvene.
Seeing that the President exercises constitutional powers in Section 58 in withholding assent to that bill, will it then be fair if the National Assembly also exercises their own constitutional power to override the President's veto?
Well, let's not forget that this National Assembly particularly is made more than 70, about 80% of APC members. And you don't have a party kicking against itself. It's not like the last National Assembly in which you had the opposition coming from the party itself. No, this is a more responsive and responsible National Assembly, and they will do what is good for our democracy. They will do what is good for the party. They will do what is good for the country.
So in that same vein, will the President mind if they were to override his veto? That's what I'm trying to ask.
Well, overriding a veto is part of democracy. But is it the expedient thing to do at a particular time? That is the question. That is what the APC will use its majority in the National Assembly to determine. Is it an expedient to override the President? If it is not, what then are the other options? That is what needs to be looked into.
Right. We're winding down quickly, Mr. Additional, and I recall that the President's Christmas message spoke about, President working to actually uplift the standard of living of Nigerians. And I mean, there will be questions as to how. We know that there's that National Development Plan at 2021 to 2025, but how would you really describe the living standard of the average Nigerian? So we can know where we are going, but let's know where we are first. How do you describe the living standard of the average Nigerian today?
Well, we live in a challenged society, challenged politically, challenged security-wise, challenged economically. So that gives you an understanding of what the government is confronting. Government is confronting severe challenges, but despite those challenges, it is keeping its head above water. And keeping its head above water, it is doing its best for Nigerians. It may not be what they want. It may not be as good as it has ever been in the days of boom for the country. But then, government is keeping its head above the waters, and Nigerians are also making do. The purpose of government is to make life better for the people at any given time. And that is what this government is out to achieve, to make life better for Nigerians.
Because, I mean, looking at the PDP's Christmas message, the party didn't mince words at all in describing their perception of the current state of the country, saying that, many Nigerian families cannot afford the basic items of celebration, I mean, during Yuletide, or even travel. It talked about the high costs of food items and the rest, insecurity, worsened insecurity, deplorable state of roads, which are now death traps in our country under the APC administration. So if you were to describe really what the president's goal is, the current situation, would you say the average Nigerian has it, bad, fair, good, average, or excellent? And then where do we plan to take them to?
Well, let's start first from the PDP claims. In the PDP years, there was a year that said 300 billion was voted for Nigerian roads, and they never used it. And you didn't know where the money disappeared to. So they have no right to talk about roads becoming death traps. They caused it. They didn't fix the roads. Roads don't get degraded in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's accumulation. In all the PDP years, they should just point to one single road that they built. They didn't do anything. They budgeted, they released the money, and they stole it. So it's accumulation of the brigandage of PDP for 16 years.
Okay, I'd like to pause you.
They have no right to say the things they're saying. Now,
pardon me, Mr. Additional. I'd like to pause you for a moment. You'll get to land on that, but we need to take a breather, much needed breather. And we'll return to get your closing thoughts on that point you were making, as well as some other issues of national importance. So please stay with us. So welcome back. We're still unpacking our Boxing Day Sunday Politics special for you today on the program. And we're in our concluding moments with Mr. Femi Adesina, the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity. Thank you, Mr. Adesina, for staying with us. So you wanted to land on that point, describing what the current state of Nigerians now, living standards, the average Nigerian, do you think is fair, bad, worse, good, or excellent?
Yes, you will permit me to just refer to one of the adverts you played, the second Niger Bridge. That was a bridge that for 16 years, the PDP built it with mouth. And within 8 years, it has been accomplished. That bridge is going to be commissioned latest second quarter of 2022. So that is one of the things that shows the difference between the current administration and the PDP that lasted for 60 years. Now, what is the situation of Nigerians? I think that Nigerians know that things are tough, but they know that things will get better. They know that as at the time the PDP exited, the excess crude oil account had been looted. Foreign exchange account, foreign reserves had been looted. Federation account had been looted. There was nothing anywhere, but things have changed. And it's reflecting gradually on the quality of life. Nigerians are hopeful. They know that things have been tough, things are improving, and things will still get better. And hope beats eternal in the human breast. As long as there is hope, they believe that things will get a lot better. That is the state of Nigerians now.
Well, the good thing is Nigerians are listening to you. I mean, they know their state, and of course, they know how it feels. But we'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Femi Adesina, for joining us on the program today. I know it's the Yuletide, it's the holiday season for you, so we appreciate that you took out time to speak with us. We've been speaking with Mr. Femi Adesina, Senior Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity. Thank you again.
Thank you.
So let's expand this conversation. It gets interesting, I promise you. And we have joining us tonight from our Abuja studio, Dr. Usman Bugaje, who's a political historian. Dr. Bugaje, it's good to have you on the program tonight.
It's my pleasure, Kayode.
You know, it's quite interesting because about this time last year, we actually spoke. I was in Lagos, you were in Abuja, and we spoke about security at large. So we talked about some other issues. And being a historian yourself, I mean, you have ways of chronicling things. From that period we spoke last year, it was on Sunday Politics, coincidentally, to this moment. Has anything changed for you in the area of security, or do I say insecurity?
Well, it's fairly obvious. Things have gotten worse in terms of, for example, last year, there were a number of local governments under control of bandits in Sokoto, for example. Just being specific. Last year, we didn't have series of attacks on the Abuja-Kaduna road with the kind of frequency and the kind of gravity that we saw in the last 1-2 months. You can go on in Katsina, the number of local governments now that are being lost to bandits is increasing. Kaita, 2 days ago, was under attack. And Kaita is barely some 15 or so kilometers, from Katsina itself. So, I mean, you can go on and on and on. It's very obvious. And listening to that kind of statement that these government issues really sounds very insulting to the citizens, because the government is basically telling us that it is insensitive, it is incompetent, and it is irresponsible. Look at the gravity of the scale, and you are belittling what is happening, and you are talking as if things are getting better, and doing so very casually. People are crying. People are I mean, blood is flowing. Everybody is worried. People don't sleep. And look at this. And then the president say, and its aides are just like jollying, and as if these things are just some kind of fairy tales. This is really incredible, Kayode.
Just to put it in context, Dr. Bugaje, the president's Christmas message, if we could just put that up, the part where he talked about courageous security forces bolstered by the necessary support from this administration daily confront the wicked ones amongst us who continue to threaten the peace of the land. So that's a part. Is that the part you reference as being insensitive?
This is completely out of touch with the reality. Where is the support for the courageous army? Where is it? We haven't seen it. And if it is, we should see it on the ground. The taste of pudding, they said, is in the eating. Let's see it on the ground. Let us see them retrieving those local governments that have been lost. Let us see it, in the roads becoming securer. Let us see it in the number of attacks, going down. You just reported what happened in Maiduguri, despite the fact that the president was there. Aren't you yourself seeing that things are really getting worse? So all this grammar, I mean, somebody just sits down and craft these speeches, and the president just reads them out. I'm not sure he is fully briefed, or if he is not, it's his responsibility to know exactly what is happening. And you can see what is happening. When people are being killed in scores, people are being burnt alive, they are busy doing ceremonies, all sorts of ceremonies. Is this the way to show that government is serious about security? Please.
Right. So the president's visit, for one, I mean, it was meant to be some sort of moral booster for the men and women of the armed forces on the front lines. The president, during that visit, in fact, asked Nigerians to fairly, rate his performance, saying that, related to what was happening before he came into office and what is happening now. And, he referenced some factors regarding that, saying that Nigerians should judge him fairly. So to the extent, I mean, to which the president says he has done a lot, I mean, what more should be done?
Kaide, I think we should ignore this conversation. Unless you are part of the conspiracy to prolong our suffering, please, let's start thinking of what team are we going to put in 2023.
I don't think that's fair.
Because
I don't think that's fair on me. I'm just putting in the question
there
to
is
you.
nothing more. Come. Listen to me. There is nothing more to expect from these people. 6, 7 years. Look at where the country is at the moment. And then you are asking me to look forward to anything? Haba. This is, I mean, 80% of their time is gone. And they've messed up this country. And you look at all the statistics. And then you are asking me to look, I don't look forward to anything.
So
honestly.
The question really...
I'm looking forward to the next administration. And I'm hoping we do not repeat the same mistake we make. Because in the last 20 years, or 20 plus years, 5 times we have taken people with ambition to run this country. We have supported them. And look at what is happening. I don't want us to keep repeating what we have been doing and then to expect things to be different. I think we have to turn around and start looking for a team of competent Nigerians who will now be hosted by a political party, and 1 or 2 of them will lead so that we can get the votes, and then they'll start fixing the country. We can't leave this politics to politicians. We can't allow politicians to continue ruining this country. We need statesmen. Politicians are only thinking about the next election. And that's why the moment they are in office, they start accumulating money, they start stealing, they start building up, because Nigerian politics is all about money and violence. And this is what the young people in their 20s, this is all they see in this country. Since they started in 1999, all they hear is money and violence. This is what characterizes our politics. It is empty, there are no ideas. Politicians all their conversation is about winning. It's about how do you win? What lies do you tell the citizens? Which way do you deceive them? Because there's nothing on the ground. This country has been going down the drain for the last 20 years. I would want to start thinking of where do we get a team that can actually, a team of competent people. And there are a lot of competent people in this country. There are a lot of competent people in the diaspora. Some of the Nigerians are some of the best, the most competent around the world. Why can't we harvest these gains that we have made so that they can come together and then we build? But we can't do it with this kind of politics. We have to change the paradigm. We have to shift the paradigm. We can't continue, people come with ambition because they have money, because they are connected, because they are this, and then they run a campaign, they get themselves into office by whatever means possible, and then they just start repeating the same kind of thing.
Well, Dr. Bugaje.
One of these fellows, one of these brilliant fellows, you remember, I think it was Einstein, who said that to repeat the same thing over and over to expect a different result is one of the definitions of insanity.
And I'd like to take up this point with you. Pardon me, you can land on that point.
Okay, the point I'm making is that I think, Kayode, what we require now is for Nigerians to come and team up. We no longer need one single candidate who claims to have the solution to the problems of this country. We have seen it. There is no one candidate. There is no one person, no matter how good he is, no matter how bright he is. What we need is a teamwork to salvage our dear country.
But at the end of the day, Doctor,
change the way politics is being organized so that we create a team, we have a collegiate leadership, and then we put our ideas together so that when we come to campaign, we'll campaign on the basis of ideas. What solutions do you have to the security problem of this country? Right. What solution do you have to the problem of manpower development? What solution do you have for infrastructure? What solution do you have for economy? How do you fix agriculture? How do you provide jobs?
Right. So because of our time, I need to take
here,
you up on some other issues. I mean, it's a lot really to discuss. And I know we keep oscillating between solution. You've referenced some solutions politically. People need to, you know, get more hands on deck, as it were. Well, at the end of the day, we can only have one president, one governor per state, but people need to be more involved. But when we oscillate between solutions,
but he needs to come with a team. He needs to come with a team. We will no longer elect a person whose team we don't know, so that we don't have to wait 6 months before the cabinet is constituted. We need to know who is the president coming up with. We need to see them. We need to evaluate them. We need to even interrogate them so that we know what we are getting. We can't just continue that blind dating kind of thing. You just simply elect someone, and then he shuts his door, and then he brings his friends and relatives, and then they start, you know, bungling and fumbling and then destroying our country. We are not going to allow that to continue to happen. Why should we? I mean,
so leadership.
You just mentioned it. We are over 200 million at the moment. In the next 10 years, we are going to be 300 million. The conversation that we should be having now is how do we, you know, provide for food? How do we provide, you know, for education? How do we provide for health care? How do we provide jobs for this population? This conversation is not around our politicians. You don't hear this in APC. You don't hear this in PDP. They are all, you know, trying to say, okay, you have done this, blaming each other. And trying to say, okay, when we come, we are going to do this. I mean, I have not even seen any different conversation. It's the same rot that we have been listening for the last 20 years. And this is why this country is going down the drain. Our politics is empty. There are no ideas.
Well,
just
Doctor,
money
we need
and
to make
violence,
the most.
And we have to change that.
We need to make the most of this opportunity
we need to find
have
time
with
to
you.
discuss this.
Yes,
we
and
need
we need
to
to try to
discuss
make
this because this is more fundamental than the kind of thing that you have been doing.
Right. So let me just say that we need to make the most of the time we have, I mean, with you tonight. And you talked about leadership recruitment process in some sense. And it's always important to dwell on some of the contemporary issues. Yes, we look at the historical perspectives as well. And just recently, I mean, I discussed with the president's media aide the Electoral Act Amendment bill, which some have said, I mean, should solve a lot of the leadership issues we have in the country. The provisions of what direct primaries, some parties say, no, we don't want to be restricted to that. But more importantly, is the way forward, which we look, I mean, to get into in 2022. What will be the way forward for you regarding that impasse?
Now, let me first say that all this hype or quarrel or conflict between the president, you know, and the National Assembly is all about self-interest. Yes, within the bill, there are very useful things on transmission, issues of card reader, but the real issue that they have been focusing on is whether we should have direct or indirect primaries. Now, those who champion the the direct primaries are not doing so because they want to improve. They are doing so because they want to protect their interest. Because the governors, if you allow indirect, the governors will be the ones to choose. And they worry that they may not come back. And the governors don't want to lose their ability to manipulate the system. So let's not someone tell me that, these things are really altruistic. These are personal quarrels between the legislature on the one hand that worry about coming back and the governors that worry about losing that ability to manipulate the system. The real issues of electronic transmission are not even part of the discussion. These are the issues. I wish they would be selfless enough to remove those elements that affect their own interests and forward those more critical issues of electronic transmission, card reader, so that we can now be able to get some progress in improving our electronic system. But let me come to the point you have raised. Now, what I think we require to change fundamentally the policies of this country and to begin to get really the kind of mileage we require, it's not something which the National Assembly is going to be ready to do. For example, at the moment, if you want to contest for any post, all you have in the Constitution is that secondary school certificate that gives you the eligibility. Nobody is talking about the suitability. We have to come back and discuss suitability. We have to include it. If we are not going to include it in the Constitution, for whatever reason some people might bring, we have to include it in the party's Constitution. That you can't come and contest for such a post in the National Assembly because you're required to have a certain level of education, certain level of competence, certain level of character. We have got to find a way of putting qualification to our leadership. Right. If we are not prepared to do that, then we are not prepared to change, and we will continue to have the rogue elements. They will take over because all it requires now to win election is violence and money. And that's it. Doctor. And that's what we want to avoid, Coyote.
And I think that's a great place to anchor. The good thing is that the National Assembly says they're going back to their constituents to consult. So I certainly hope that the people will raise this point. But for now, we have to thank you, Dr. Usman Bugaje, historian, for joining us tonight on the program. If you can do that in 5 seconds, Doctor.
I just have one last request. Not me alone. Please get people to start discussing the more fundamental issues. A lot of the issues that you people discuss, are superficial. They do not take us very far. Well, in fact, they detain us.
Well, Doctor,
please, let's start serious, deep discussion about the future of this country.
We've certainly taken that to heart. And we ask the questions that the people want to know about. So we thank you for that. We've taken that on board, and we appreciate your time. I wish you a happy holidays, Dr. Usman Bugaje. Well, that's our package for tonight, everyone. Our Boxing Day special. It's been great having you on the program. Thank you so much. I'm Kayode Okikelu. Good night.